Hey, everybody. The 4th of August, 2023. Super happy to be joining you today. As every week, we talk about a financial topic. And today, it's one that's definitely something that's more and more concerning to me right now. And that is credit card debt. The credit card debt problem in the United States has ballooned. It has skyrocketed. It is crazy out of control. And I'm worried. I'm worried about some of the strategies people are taking, how people are handling it, and maybe not handling it. And so I want to tackle it head on and take a good amount of time today to dive into what's the problem, really deep dive into some strategies to help you solve the problem, and then talk about, is it a good idea to get rid of my 2.5 to 3% mortgage rate and replace it with a high rate just so I get out of all this debt? I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I'm going to show you some numbers and give you some examples of different ways to look at it. But before I get on to the mortgage piece of it, I'm going to spend a lot of my time just talking about credit cards and other debt and some strategies on how to get yourself out of it. So really my goal today is to focus on how to get out of high credit card debt. To give you some context, credit cards are always, not always, normally, majority of the time, tied to the prime rates. Okay. So the prime rates right now is 8.5%. So the prime rate is always 3% higher than what the Federal Reserve sets their overnight or discount rate. Every single meeting, almost every meeting for the last year, the Federal Reserve has been raising that rate. So the prime rate was at 3.5% a year ago. The prime rate has now skyrocketed and it is currently at 8.5%. Now, if you have a home equity line of credit, your rate is typically tied to prime. And it means that it's prime plus something or prime minus something. And the prime minus somethings were always short-term deals. Hey, we'll give you a deal. We'll give you prime minus 1. Well, that meant a year and a half ago, you got a 2.5% home equity line of credit. But the interest rate for that prime rate is skyrocketed. That means that the average credit card had an interest rate in the low 20s as of a year ago, because it was really prime plus 17, prime plus 18. Well, the problem is prime was at 3.5, and prime plus 18 would put you at 21.5. But now we're 5.5% higher than that. So now instead of being at 21.5, we're at 27 or 28% interest, depending upon what your credit card is tied to. The bottom line, credit card interest rates have skyrocketed. And the problem is people didn't really slow down their credit card spending during that time. And a lot of them actually pulled back and started only paying the minimum payment. And here's the other challenge. The challenge and what I want to shift to is, first of all, how bad is the problem? The challenge is that people had a bunch of money coming in 2020 and 2021 from COVID stimulus. And so they got spending that money because they had nothing else to do. And now we hit 2022 and the stimulus slows down and stops. And people say, oh man, but inflation's really high and it costs a lot of money just to live. Plus, you know what? I haven't traveled in a long time. I deserve to go be able to travel. And I don't blame you. I deserve to go be able to travel too. The problem is that a lot of us have been putting that on our credit cards. We've been spending money hoping that, well, the rates will come back down soon. I'll get a pay raise. I'll pay it off. It's only a little bit more money. And a little bit more and a little bit more becomes a big problem. It's kind of like the story of the frog in the boiling pot. So if you know that story, bear with me for 30 seconds. If you don't, here's the deal with a frog. You put a frog into a boiling pot of water, it jumps out. Why? Because the water is burning hot. The frog immediately jumps out. But if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and you turn on the stove, the frog will never jump out. It will die. Why? Because it didn't notice the incremental change. It literally died from not paying attention to things getting a little bit hotter and a little bit hotter. And that's the same thing we're doing with our credit card debt. So I want to share with you a chart. And this chart is the consumer credit card debt for the American public for the last, 23 years. So since 2001. So back in 2001, consumer credit card debt was way down here. So this is in billions of dollars. So this is not average. This is $217 billion in credit card debt. And you see in 2004, 5, 6, 7, it's going up, it's going up. 2009. What happened in 2009? We hit the Great Recession. People hit a wall. They ended up charging off their credit cards. They filed for bankruptcy, and that debt load fell significantly. Oh, but wait a second. Then it immediately shot back up because people realized, hey, this recession isn't going to last forever. We're actually coming out of the recession, and credit card debt shot up. And then we kind of came down a little bit and we stayed pretty steady. So we were at about $500-600 billion in credit card debt. And then we kept going on the climb and we hit $850 billion in credit card debt right before the pandemic. And then guess what? The pandemic hit. People, you didn't have anywhere to spend your money. And so what did you do? You paid off debt. You had stimulus money coming in. You spent some money, but you paid off a lot of debt. And we hit the bottom in April of 2021. And now we're on a charge all over again. So we are now just at $1 trillion in credit card debt. And with these interest rates, it's made life significantly worse for people. So that's the challenge that I'm talking about here. We have all got to be very, very concerned about ourselves and our credit card debt, about our friends and family and their credit card debt. And I strongly encourage you, whether it's somebody that you know is dealing with credit card debt or somebody you just want to educate, forward this video to them. Let them know, hey, check it out. Here's some strategies of things you should and shouldn't do about credit card debt, because there is way too much misinformation online. And I'm about to propagate some more of it. I'm just kidding. Hopefully my information is not misinformation, but be weary of anything you watch or listen to online, including me, because everybody's situation is different. So what I think is a good idea for you may not actually be a good idea for you. You need to talk to a financial planner, come talk to me and I can go through it with you, but don't take generic. All right, so let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts. Before I dive into this, I want to make this interactive. So if you have questions, post them into the chat on whatever platform you're watching. If you're watching recorded, post them into chat and I'll catch them later. I'll bring your question up on screen and I'll answer it. So feel free. No question is the wrong one. No question is a dumb question. All right, so let's talk about some do's. Do create a budget. John, why'd you have to go there? I hate budgets. I don't want to create a budget. Budgets are restrictive. Budgets are constraining. I don't want to be told what to do. Here's the deal. Budgets are just shining a spotlight on what money you're spending. The most important budget is the one that simply shows you where your money went. That doesn't mean that you have to take that step further and say, I'm only going to spend X amount of dollars. There's lots of budgeting plans. There's the envelope plan that says, hey, when you get your paycheck, you put a certain amount of money in envelopes labeled for something. Here's money for food. Here's money for gas. And you can only use that money for that thing. That's not the type of budget I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, let's open our eyes. Let's not bury our head in the sand and say, I don't know, but I hope it all goes away. Let's see where we're spending our money. Let's see how much money am I bringing in and where is it going out? And am I spending more than what I'm bringing in? That is the first thing you have to be aware of. But you cannot figure out what to do about it if you don't know where the money is going. All right. My second strategy, my second suggestion, use what's called the debt snowball method. Now, this is a way to pay off your debts faster. And it's a way to do it without anybody's help. What it takes is discipline. Now, here's the problem. If you got a lot of credit card debt, you might not have had as much discipline as you'd like to think. And so my worry about this solution is if you didn't have a lot of solution or a lot of discipline and you got yourself into a lot of credit card debt, are you going to have the discipline to get yourself out of it? If you're committed to simply following this strategy, the debt snowball method works. And what it is, just like a snowball, you start with a snowball, you start with something really, really small, and then you keep packing on it, and it grows. And so you start with something small, and that is your credit card that has the smallest balance. And you start paying extra on that. So let's pretend you've got 3 credit cards, and one is 20 grand, one is 15 grand, and one is 5 grand. Then you start paying extra on that $5,000 credit card. Just pay the minimum on the $15,000 and $20,000 cards. You pay extra on the $5,000 card. So let's say you plan on paying $200 a month extra on that credit card on top of its $200 minimum payments. You're paying $400 a month on that $5,000 credit card. Over time, you'll get that card paid off. As soon as that card's paid off, the first thing it does is it gives you a mental and emotional win. It's important to have a win. It's important to have a goal that you can see and that you can accomplish quickly. By paying off your smallest debt, not interest rate, your smallest debt size, you've accomplished a goal of paying off a credit card. And then you take that $400 you were spending on that credit card and you add the full amount to the $10,000 credit card, whatever the next highest credit card is. And now you pay the minimum payment on that card plus the full amount you were paying on the prior cards. That's the snowball. You're adding it together. You never slow down how much you're spending towards credit card payments. You're simply paying off one and now taking the full amount and applying it to the next one. And then when you pay this one off, you take the full amount you were paying there and you apply it to the next biggest credit card. So that's the debt snowball method. And it's great because it gives you emotional wins to say, I paid something off. It's the opposite of the debt avalanche method. Remember, if you have questions about any of this, if you like what I'm saying, give me a thumbs up or give me a hi or give me a something. If you have questions, give me a comment. I'd love it. So the opposite of the snowball method is the avalanche method. Now, financially speaking, the avalanche method is a smarter option than the snowball because the avalanche method, like an avalanche, starts at the top of the hill. Well, the top of the hill we're talking about here is not your biggest balance, but your highest interest rates. Because the highest rate credit card is costing you the most amount of money in interest cost. So fiscally, financially speaking, the avalanche method is the smarter method. The problem is we're not just intellectual beings, we're emotional beings. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to compare and contrast the financial side of things and the human side of things, the long term and the short term. So long term, you're better off using the avalanche method because you're going to pay off the highest interest rate credit cards first. But short term, if you're an emotional person, you might give up. You might feel like I'm never, ever going to succeed in paying off all of these debts because I've been paying for a year and I haven't even gotten one paid off. I'm only halfway there. So you have to understand that short term, sometimes you have to do something that is not in your long-term best interest. I'll give you another simple example of short term versus long term. So short term, you should look at having long term. Long term, you should look at having the shortest possible mortgage you can. And I've had a lot of people come to me saying, hey, John, I want to do a 15-year mortgage. I want to get my loan paid off. Now, this was prior to rates skyrocketing like they have in the last year and a half. But they said, hey, I want to do a 15-year mortgage. And I said, okay, but you're barely able to afford that 15-year mortgage. And they said, yeah, but I've been told 15 years is the best. And I've been told it's going to save me a bunch of money in interest. And I said, yeah, that's great long term. But what happens if you have some unexpected expenses come up? What happens if a family member gets sick and you have to help take care of them and you don't have the money to afford to pay that 15-year payment? You're going to lose the house. Or you're going to have to refinance, yet interest rates might be a lot higher, kind of like they are today. So I advised my clients, hey, take out a 30-year and just pay a little bit faster. And they said, yeah, but the rate's higher on the 30. It is, but it's a trade-off between short and long term. So long term, you want to pay the least amount of interest, but short term, if you cannot afford the mortgage payments, you're going to lose the home. If you cannot afford the mortgage payment, you're going to lose the home. So no matter what, you could get a 0% interest rate. That's a great long-term strategy. Can you afford the payment on a $10 million home? Most of us can't. So is it really a good idea to take out that $10 million loan It's interest free, John. Long term, that's free money. But short term, you got to write a check every single month. Can you afford to write a check for that every single month? Because if you can't, you'll never get to the long-term benefit. You've got to understand the difference. Do not simply make your decisions based on, well, financially speaking, John, that's a bad idea. Financially speaking, if you lose it all, it's a worse idea. I'm going to talk a little bit later about consolidating your debts into your mortgage. And a lot of people tell me, John, that's a horrible idea because I'm taking my car loan that's going to get paid off in 7 years and I'm stretching it out to 30. Why would I want to pay for a car for 30 years? Well, part of it is, are you able to even keep afloat today? Because for a lot of people, they end up filing bankruptcy in that situation. And now you've lost everything. They end up losing their home to foreclosure and they've lost all the equity. I had a past client of mine who I found out had lost their home to foreclosure, and they didn't know they had options to do a short sale. They didn't know they had options to cash out earlier and pay off some other debts, and they lost. They missed the opportunity because they didn't understand what their options were. So I want you to not be in that situation. I don't want you to misunderstand what your options are. I don't want you to be in a position where you say, I got to focus on long-term and I need to do what's right for me long-term. You know what? If you can't make it through the short term, you'll never make it to the long-term. So debt avalanche method, long-term best option, pay the highest interest credit card first, and then take that money and apply it towards the next highest interest credit card. But short-term, emotionally, the human side, I am a much bigger fan of the debt snowball method. Pick your smallest credit card and pay it first, pay extra and pay it first, take the full amount you're paying on that one and apply it to the next biggest. It snowballs and it snowballs and it snowballs. That's what I recommend. All right, so debt consolidation. I think debt consolidation is not a bad idea if you can afford the payment. Now, I'm not talking about a mortgage right now. I'll talk about mortgage options later. But so you can take out a personal loan and you can consolidate your debts into a personal loan. One of the hazards I have here, one of my worries, and it's my worry when I do a cash out refinance to pay off somebody's debt, is really all I've given you is the green light to run up your credit cards again. Think about that. You have a whole bunch of credit cards that you have no balances on, and it's really easy to be the frog in the pot again. So you've got to have commitment and discipline or cut up the credit cards. Now, don't close the credit card accounts. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but don't close them. Just listen to me. Don't close your credit cards. But you can cut up the card. You can keep the account open, but don't close the account, okay? And yes, I know technically you can type in the numbers on the internet and you can still use it. Stop, okay? Step away from the keyboard. All right, so consolidating your debts, it's not a bad idea. Because what consolidating your debts does is allows you to know what your payment is going to be and have a strategy to say, if I pay this much, it's going to be paid off in this amount of time. And it freezes in what your interest rate is on that. You just have, I'm worried about what personal loan interest rates are going up to. And so if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me and I can help advise you on the best way to move forward. I'm asked a lot about balance transfers to low rate specials, like 0% interest credit cards. I don't know that they exist anymore, but absolutely transfer your money. Just be aware of one fact. You're paying a balance transfer fee. They're not giving it to you for free. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. If you're paying 28% and they said, hey, we're going to charge you a 5% balance transfer fee, and we're only going to charge you a 5% interest rate. Okay. Well, then for the first year, it cost me 10%, and that's way better than the 28% that I'm paying right now. So yes, use that, and then take your savings and interest and pay extra using the snowball method. Pay something off faster, whether it's that low interest account or whether it's another account. Use the savings to pay stuff off faster. Okay, another strategy to get rid of credit cards. Look for ways to increase your income. Let's be real. There's lots of options out there right now. The gig economy that we're in, you can go drive for Uber, you can do stuff online. There's lots of side gigs. Just Google side gigs. Okay. There's lots of ways in which you can make extra money, and take that extra money. That's your job that you do to pay for a living. So go find a way to bring in some extra money. Maybe you start selling some stuff. Maybe you start going to garage sales and buy things at a garage sale. And first of all, people at garage sales are looking to just unload. They're done with the stuff. They want to get rid of it. If they want to take the time to figure out what it was worth and sell it online, they would. They don't want to. But you can. So go to a garage sale, buy something that you know is worth more. You can put it online and you can sell it and make a profit. There's lots of ways to make extra money. So don't be a victim. Don't look at yourself as stuck and unable to change your situation. You've got to recognize you're in control. And if you say, John, I can't pay down debt, I have no extra money, then go make some extra money. There's lots of little ways to do it, but don't be a victim. All right. So if you're going to look at making more money, let's be real. Let's look at cutting expenses. Let's go through the credit card. Here's the thing I love to do. I love to call up my credit card company and say, hey, my card was stolen and I need to change the card number so that nobody else can use it. And what it does is it basically stops every one of the automatic payments you have set up. Think about it. You have so many little things that are coming out of your credit card account every single. You don't even use it anymore. You don't know what it is and you wouldn't miss it. So if you just simply change your credit card number, they'll notify you, hey, excuse me, sir, that $5 you've been getting from you every month for the last 10 years, we're not able to get it anymore. Could you give us the new credit card? No, I won't. You don't need to spend on that. So that's the simplest way to cut your expenses. You're only setting up the credit card for things you actually want. All the rest of it, it's canceled because they can't bill it anymore. Absolutely tried and true method. Give it a shot because it's a great way to press reset on all of those recurring payments. Here's the other thing you can do. Negotiate with your creditors. Tell them, hey, you know what? This debt's gotten higher than what I expected. I want to pay you faster, but I need some help because this interest is killing me. What can we do? My credit's still good. I've been paying you guys well. I don't want to get behind. I kind of want to threaten them a little bit. I don't want to be in a position where I can't afford to pay you down the road, planting a seed that they have something to lose. And so you say, hey, will you work with me? Will you help me deal with this situation proactively? And let's see what they say. It never hurts to ask. Just be clear. You don't want them to charge off your debt. You don't want to be in collections. You're just looking for a break. Hey, can you lower my interest rate even temporarily? Because guess what? At some point, rates are going to start coming down anyway. Now is the time that it's the most painful. Now's the time it's most painful. All right. Next strategy. Use windfalls. You get money periodically, whether it's a birthday gift, whether it's a tax refund, whether it is bank error in your favor, collect $10. Wait, that was Monopoly. Anyway, whatever it is, we get windfalls. So use the windfalls to pay down debts. You're in a position right now of weakness. I hate to say it, but when you have no debt, you're in a position of strength to choose where to put your money. But I would rather see you pay off debt than invest in the stock market because you have a guarantee paying off your credit cards. Every dollar you put into credit card payments saves you 25 cents in interest. And we learned as kids a penny saved is a penny earned. And so whether you go earn 5 or 10% because, hey, I invested in this particular thing and it's going to make me 15% return on my dollars, that still doesn't beat how much you're going to make by not spending 25% interest on your credit cards. So be aware, a penny saved is a penny earned. Use those windfalls to pay down debts. And you need to put yourself in a position of strength. And right now you're behind the 8 ball. All right. Do look at using your home equity. And I'll talk about that in the end. All right, let's shift to the don'ts. You ready for the don'ts? Dun, dun, dun. Don't ignore the problem. Seriously, like this is a big deal. And the more you bury your head in the sand, the more you think it's going to go away, the less it's going to go away. You have to face the fact. If you've been saving money and you have money in your savings account, use it to pay off your credit cards. Your credit cards can still be your emergency fund, but there is no point in keeping an emergency fund in cash in the bank and having an equal or greater amount of credit card debt. Get rid of the debt. If you have a car breakdown, you can use your credit card to swipey swipe, and you can pay off the car loan, or not the car loan, the repairs. So you don't have to have your emergency fund in cash. You can have your emergency fund be your credit cards that you don't have balances on. So stop keeping money in the bank and saying, oh my gosh, I need to have a reserve fund. I'm not saying have nothing in the bank, but what I'm saying is, look, you don't need a bunch of money in the bank and high credit card bills, because you're getting paid 2% on the money at the bank and you're paying 27% on the credit cards. It's not worth it. Don't make the minimum payments only. I'll kind of put these two together. Don't skip a payment. So if you're in a position where you can't afford to pay for everything, and your choice is, hey, I can pay extra on these cards because I committed to the avalanche method, John. I committed to the snowball method, and I've got to pay extra on these credit cards. But it means I'm going to miss a payment on this other credit card. Don't do it, because now you're destroying your credit. I'm going to get started in a second about these consolidation companies and what they do to your credit. But bottom line is, don't make your minimum monthly payments except if you're in a position where you can't afford to pay everything. That's short-term versus long-term. Short-term says pay everything on time. The moment you're late, you've destroyed your credit. Now you're in a deeper hole. Now you have a lot of debt and bad credit. Do not let that happen. But as long as you're able to pay everything, try paying more than the minimum payment, because the minimum payment is going to kill you. It is so small, it doesn't pay off. It takes a really, really long time to pay it off using the minimum payment. So don't get yourself into that cycle. Pay more than the minimum payment. Don't take cash advances. Okay, now when I said use your credit card as a reserve account, as a security fund instead of the cash, I also said keep some cash in the bank, because you do not want to take cash advances. You pay a higher premium, you pay higher rates, you pay fees for pulling cash out as a cash advance. Use your credit cards to buy groceries so that your paycheck can be used to pay for those things you needed cash for. Stop doing cash advances on your credit card. You're making the problem worse. I know this is easier said than done, but you've got to think about these strategies and how they're going to pay attention to you, how they're going to matter to you. This one's a big one. I'm going to sit back, take a breath, and really talk to you heart to heart about this one. I've had 4 different clients in the last month at some stage of debt settlement program. One of them, they hadn't started yet, and I'm getting back to them to tell them, do not do it. Do not do it. And here's what the thing is. Here's what they tell you. They tell you, we can help you get rid of your credit card debt without filing bankruptcy. It's a heck of a deal. We negotiate with your creditors on your behalf to have them accept less than the full balance that's due, and we do all the work for you. And it doesn't cost you anything more than what you're paying today. Now, here's what they really do. They tell you to stop paying any of your credit cards. They tell you, take what you were paying on your credit cards and write me, the debt settlement company, write me the check. And don't worry, we're going to hold on to this money. We're going to hold on to a portion. We're going to hold on to a portion of this money to go towards paying off your credit cards once they're willing to negotiate with us. And that's all they really tell you. Now, think about this. You stopped paying your credit cards. You're paying them. Now, in your mind, you think, well, yeah, but they're paying my credit card companies every month because I'm paying them the same amount I was paying the credit card companies. We're managing that relationship for you. So when they call you, simply say, oh no, I'm using ABC company. You need to talk to them because they're managing this for me. And then you should hang up on them is what they tell you. And what's really happening is they're choking out your credit card company because they're not giving them any money. And the plan, and it works 100%. The plan is at a certain point, you get into collections. And then they negotiate and they say, hey, you know this client that you have that's owed you $15,000 on a credit card that's now in collections, but you're never going to get anything from them, and you're about to charge it off as bad debt? How would you like to have $5,000 out of that 15? Wouldn't that make you feel good to not lose everything and at least get $5,000 out of that 15 that you were owed? And at a certain point, the credit card companies say yes, absolutely. And now they have settled your debts for less than what you owed, and they did it all for you. But they destroyed your credit in the meantime because you hadn't paid that bill for 6, 12, 18, 24 months. It's been reporting every single month as a collection, and your 750 credit score is 490. I'm not kidding. I see it regularly. And you're shocked when you call me to get a mortgage and saying, hey, John, I'm just finished paying off all of my debts. I'm now debt-free and I'm ready to buy a house. And I take a look and your credit score is 490. You say, well, no. They said that that's temporary and that they're going to have the credit card companies undo the negative history. Once they settled, each of them, they said they're going to get them to undo the negative history once they've settled. I've never seen that. I've heard of it. I've heard of people saying, yep, they, as part of the negotiation, they convinced the credit card company, hey, do you want this $5,000 out of the 15,000 you're owed? Take it under one condition, that you undo all the late payments that showed up on the credit report. That credit card company isn't very willing to do that because then they're not going to have, nobody else is going to have a record of how you didn't pay that bill. And now they're worried that if every other bank did the same thing and deleted the negative history, they might get stuck in a position where they're doing a loan, giving a credit card to somebody like you who didn't pay their bill for a year and a half. They're not likely to do it, especially after the settlement's been paid. The only time you have a shot at getting it fixed on your credit report is if they fix it as part of the negotiation. Once the settlement's paid, there's no reason for the credit card company to remove or change your credit report because it's factual. You didn't pay your bill and then you did. And you can say all day long, I paid my debt settlement company monthly. I didn't know they weren't paying you. You're an adult. You should read your contract. It didn't say that they were going to pay your credit card companies every single month. As a matter of fact, in the fine print, it says this may damage your credit score because we're not paying your credit card bills. Debt settlement scams are a scam. They work, but they are not what they tell you they are. Because, by the way, part of the monthly payment you're paying them, they keep as their fee. They don't make it really clear how much of it they do. It's in the fine print, but they don't talk about how much of it because every time I've talked to somebody with one of these programs, I said, how much of the money that you're giving them does that company keep? And they said, I have no idea. Yeah, let's read your contract and take a look. It's astounding how much of that money they keep as their own for the work that they're doing. All they're doing is collecting your money every single month and holding on to it and making interest on your money while your credit's getting destroyed. And then once a year, they'll make a phone call and write a check out of that account. It's robbery. It's not robbery, but it's a scam. I'll just call it that. It's a scam. Do not fall for a debt settlement scam. All right, on to the next topic. Don't close your credit cards. I said this earlier. I'll say it again. Don't close your credit cards. You need to maintain a relationship with a credit card company. And if you pay off your credit cards when you and then you close them, you lose the relationship, and that is important to your credit score. As a matter of fact, having available credit that you can charge up, but you haven't charged up, that helps your credit score because it shows self-control. I don't trust myself having this ability to charge this up. I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble again. If you don't trust yourself, if you're afraid you're going to get in trouble again, why would a bank trust you when you can't trust yourself? Why would a mortgage company trust you with $500,000 when you don't trust yourself with a $5,000 credit card? You want me to loan you 100 times the credit card balance, but you're not willing to trust yourself with a $5,000 credit card. So I know there's about a dozen people on here right now, and I'm not hearing from anybody. So hopefully I'm resonating a little bit. I'd love to get a shout out. I'd love to get somebody saying great info, John, or thanks for waking me up because I was falling asleep because you were boring me. Oh, I got somebody. I got a commenter. Woohoo! All right. Kathy says, good point. Kathy, thank you. It is a good point to make sure nobody's falling asleep. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for that, Kathy. All right. So don't close your credit cards. All right. So now let's shift. Last segment I want to talk about is options to use your home equity to pay off debts. Now, I'll tell you, if you go back a year and a half in my YouTube library, you're going to see a video that is called Home Equity Loan, Home Equity Line of Credit, or Cash Out Refi. And I talked about the pros and cons of all three. And at that time, I said for most people, you're better off getting a home equity loan or line of credit. Today, my advice is totally different. Now, it doesn't mean I was wrong back then. It means the circumstances have changed. So your home equity loan or line of credit. Now, home equity loan is a fixed rate, which is great. A year ago, you got a home equity loan at 5.5%. That's a screaming deal today. So I'm glad you did it. Your home equity lines of credit a year ago were at 4 to 5%. Now they're at 9 to 11%. Now, if you did a fixed rate back then, that's great, but you can't get that anymore. You can get a fixed rate, but it's going to be a lot higher. If you did a variable rate back then, your rate has skyrocketed. So going today to get a home equity line of credit to pay off your credit cards, you're looking at double digits. You're looking at likely a 10% plus interest rate. I've seen home equity lines of credit at 12 to 13% interest rates pretty commonly. Now, that's way better than what you're paying on your credit cards. But here's the deal. It might not be better than what you're paying overall, or what we call your blended rates, the money that you are paying across all of your debt. Because if you end up saying, hey, John, I've got a 3% mortgage at 300 grand, but I have 300 grand of other debt that I'm going to consolidate into a home equity line of credit at 12%. Your average interest rate is going to be, what am I looking at here? 7.5%. Your average interest rate is 7.5%. So that is going to kill you. Versus if you got even at that rate, look, today we might be at a 7.5% on a 30-year fixed mortgage. But here's why I think it's better to get the cash out refinance than to use the home equity line of credit, because rates are going to come down. And every time you pull cash out, at the loan that you do with cash out is a higher interest rate than the loan you do without pulling cash out. So you say, well, John, that's fine. I'll just take the home equity line of credit now, and I'll consolidate in a year or two when interest rates come down. But a year or two is when you need to get the best possible rate, because that might be as low as rates go for a while. You don't want to pay the markup a year or two from now on that interest rate. You want to get the best possible rate at that time. Today, your rate is not going to be your permanent rates, because everybody expects interest rates to come back down in the next couple of years. When? We don't know. If you go back a year and a half in my video library, you'll see I thought by now we'd be at interest rates in the low fives. Boy, was I wrong. As of yesterday, interest rates, so again, today is August 4th, 2023. As of yesterday, interest rates were the highest they'd been in 26 years. Highest mortgage rates we've ever seen in 26 years. I haven't been in this industry for 26 years. I've been in this industry for 23. I have never, ever in my 23 years seen interest rates higher than they are as of yesterday. Good news, they came down a little bit this morning. So we're no longer at the absolute highest in 26 years. But when you hit the peak of something, it's got to take a lot to blow through that peak. It's kind of like when interest rates were going down, and the lowest we had ever hit was 3.25, and we kept bouncing off of 3.25 over the last 15 years. And we hit it 3 or 4 times, and we never went below it until COVID. The entire global economy collapsed because of a disease, an outbreak, and that collapsed a lot of economies and changed the dynamics. And that's what caused it to break through the lowest rates we've ever seen. Are we really going to go above 26-year highs? We could, but it would take a pretty significant move. And we came back off of that today. So once again, we tested that high and we came back down. So you don't want to have that next loan you do be the one that you're paying the extra amount for pulling cash out. You want to do one loan today to pull cash out, and then you're able to refinance later. So let me go through an example here with you. So first of all, let me pull up this example. And this example, there you go. All right. So this example that I'm showing, it may seem to you like a lot. It may seem to you like, John, this isn't real. Nobody owes this amount of money. This is pretty close to an example I had for a recent client of mine. Okay. So $282,000 mortgage at 2.99%. Their payments for principal and interest is $1,263. Great loan. Great interest rates. They should keep it forever. As a matter of fact, a year ago, they took my advice and got a home equity line of credit to consolidate their debts and to do some work on the home. So the fourth line down, you're going to see says their HELOC's $100,000. It's now at 9.5%. So they're paying $750, but that $750, that's only interest. They have to pay more than that to take a bite out of the balance. But because it's their lowest interest rate overall, they're not paying anything extra. So they're literally never at this payment going to have any impact of that home equity line of credit. It's going to stay at $100,000. And it's $100,000 that they owe at 3 times the interest rates of their $300,000, $282,000 first mortgage. Okay, that's crazy to think about. But it's reality that people have super high interest rates on the. They have 2 cars. They had a $25,000 car at 6.5%, and they had a $40,000 car at 7%. So it was $592 and $792 were their monthly payments. They had a personal loan of $5,000 at 19%, and 3 credit cards. And we're looking at what, 20, 30, 40, what am I looking at? 40, $50,000 in credit cards. You might say, oh my God, John, that's $50,000 in credit cards. That's absurd. Nobody has that much in credit card debt. $1 trillion in credit card debt, up from, gosh, if I just look at 2014, we were at $600,000, 600 billion, and now we're at 1 trillion. So we've had a 40% increase in credit card debt since 2016 for the average consumer, a 40% increase. That means that if you had credit cards of $25,000 back then, you're at $40,000, $50,000 now. So it's not unheard of. It's not unrealistic for somebody to have this much in credit card debt. And 25 to 29% interest rates, those are pretty common. You don't look at it very much on your credit card bill, but open them up. Open up your credit card statements and write down your balance and your interest rates for each of your credit cards. You'll be shocked at how much money you're spending in interest. So here's this example that I'm giving you. Now, let me show you over here what that looks like on paper. So I'm going to go here. There we go. All right. So what I'm showing you right here, let's kind of zoom in a little bit. Okay. So what we're looking at, first of all, is their current loan. So the house is worth $650. I forgot to put the $650 over here. And they owe $282,000 at a 2.99% interest rate. So I told you a minute ago, their payment is like $1,263 before taxes and insurance. But if you add up all of those other payments, so I'm going to go back here really quick and show this to you. You add up all of these other payments that they're making, and they are paying $4,000 plus in interest. Excuse me, not interest, in monthly payments on all of this stuff. It's crazy how much they are paying in other monthly payments. So let's go back to what this scenario looks like. Again, this sounds absurd, but it isn't. Okay, this sounds like, John, this can't be real, but it's real. So this person is paying $6,055 a month between all of those debts, including their property taxes and homeowners insurance. $6,000 a month. But they only have a $1,200 house payment. If you add taxes and insurance, they're at $1,600 a month. And they don't want to get rid of it because they're at a 2.99% interest rate. The problem is they've got all that debt. So now, by the way, they refinanced in 2020, so they got 27 and a half years left to pay off this mortgage. Now, if they refinance $82,000 to $520,000, they're chewing up a lot of their equity in their home. It is stretching that debt out to a new 30 years at 7.5% interest. It's a horrible idea. Or is it? Because the first thing is you got to think about short term. Can you afford that $6,000 a month? Can you really afford that? Or is that why your credit cards are going up? Because you keep robbing Peter to pay Paul. You keep charging your groceries every single month and charging your cell phone bill every single month and charging your utilities every single month because you can't afford to pay for them. And so your balances are going up because you can't afford to live, and that is not sustainable. You can't continue living that way. And so if you refinance down to a 7.5% interest rate, that payment goes to $4,135. That's saving you $1,900 a month. You can take that $1,900 a month and put it into a savings account and build up a retirement account. You could invest it in the stock market. I think that's not a good idea. I think you should use it to pay down this 7.5% mortgage, but you could put it in and pay it in the stock market. You could do anything you want with it. It's your money. Don't piss it away. Please don't ruin all the good that we're doing by using this money poorly. Well, here's what I would like you to do. I'd like to take the entire amount of money, that extra $1,900, and pay it towards your mortgage. Keep paying the total amount. Save nothing. So we talk about monthly savings. I want you to save nothing off of your monthly payment. I just want you to keep paying what you're paying today. Because guess what? If you do that, you're debt-free in 12 years. This isn't a 30-year loan. It's a 30-year loan. It's not a 30-year payment. What you're paying right now, if you just kept paying it in this scenario, if this was you, and you kept paying that every single month on the new loan that you would consolidate it, you'd be paid off in 12 years. And by the way, you're going to refinance long before that, and you're going to save interest making today. That's the best strategy. Here's the second best strategy. The second best strategy says, John, that's great, but I just can't afford to keep paying. The problem is I can't afford the $6,000 a month. Okay, then let's save you $1,000 a month. Let's drop you down to $5,055 instead of $6,055. You get to keep an extra $1,000 less in monthly payments that you can use so that you don't have to keep having your credit card bills go up to pay for your utilities, to pay for your cell phone, to pay for your groceries and your gasoline. And it still pays you off in just under 17 years. This is not a new plan to take your debt and stretch it out for 30 years. If it's going to, if you don't have a lot of credit card debt, if you your balance on your unsecured debt is way low compared to your balance on your mortgage, this wouldn't work for you. But there's a lot of people it will work for. Okay, there's a lot of people. I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to wrap up with this. There's a lot of people who bury their head in the sand. I hope you're not one of them. I also hope that you forwarded this to someone who knows that I'm speaking to them right now. If you're burying your head in the sand, you're somebody who didn't refinance in 2020 and 2021 because you said, oh my gosh, you know what? I've heard that refinancing is a bad idea. And so you still got your 6% interest rate that you took out in 2010 when you bought the home. And that's great that you're 13 years into the loan and you don't want to lose all of that time. And you bought the home in 2010 when houses were $200,000 and now your house is worth $550,000. You only owe $130,000 on your mortgage. Now you're at a high interest rate, but you're paying it down quickly. And you feel like, man, I am in great shape. But you have $100,000 of other debts that are in the 20s. You have to look at this logically. You have to stop for a second and say, I need to figure out if it makes sense to press the reset button on my debt structure. Because if you're in a position where you have continued to bury your head in the sand and hope, you know what, it'll get better. I got a great mortgage. Who cares about all this credit card debt? I don't want to put that together because then it'll take me 30 years to pay off my credit cards. No, it won't. Because your credit card interest rate just went from 28% down to 7.5%. And that 7.5% is now tax deductible. It wasn't tax deductible when you were paying it as a credit card payment. The last piece of this, the last person I want to talk to is the person who's in this exact situation where they have a lot of credit card debt. They have a lot of equity in their home, but they're underwater in their monthly payments and they want to move, but they can't. They won't, because they don't want to lose that low interest rate they have. They don't want to lose the progress they've made in paying down their mortgage by starting over at a high interest rate. It might be the time to press the reset button on both your home and on your finances, because you can refinance and pay off your debt and stay in the home that you're in. Or you can sell your house, take all the cash that you got from the sale of your house and use it to pay off your debts and do a small down payment loan. As a matter of fact, I have a down payment assistance program that requires 0 down payment. That's right, 0 down. We give you 2 loans, one for the 97% of the purchase price and the other one for 3%. You don't put anything down. You only pay closing costs. And you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So many people think, oh my gosh, I've already owned a home. I have to put 20% down on my next house. And so they do that. They buy the next house, they put 20% down, and they still have the same problem because they have all of these credit card bills that are burying them, and they're going to grow because you're going to charge up your credit cards to fix up the new house that you just bought. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let that happen to those that you love. Share this information with them and tell them there's a better way. You can buy a house. Now, it costs you more. You have higher interest rates, but nowhere near as high as what you're paying on those credit cards. So use the equity from your home, whether it be when you're selling that house because you hate the home. You bought it in 2020 when you had to rush to get it, and you've been there for 3 years and you hate the home. But you charged up too much in debt and you just can't afford the monthly payments, and you couldn't imagine having a house payment that was even higher because interest rates have doubled. I get it. Mathematically, emotionally, I get it. But when we really understand this strategy, putting a small down payment on a home and paying off all of your debts, much, much better plan. Even for people who have not been a homeowner before, and they've saved up for a down, and they've saved up, and they've saved up, and they've saved up, but they have a bunch of credit cards. Don't use the money for a down payment. Use the money to pay off the credit cards and the car loans so that you can afford life better. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the time that you've given me today. I'm coming up on almost the hour. And I appreciate everybody listening. And I just want to thank you for trusting me to guide you financially. If you liked what you saw here, please go to my YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe. So scan this QR code right over here so that you can get to my YouTube channel. Check it out. Please follow me and share it with everybody that you know. And I've got a comment here. And my comment is from Shella. Thank you so much. She says, thanks for the insights. I really appreciate it. I am happy to share with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful weekend, and we'll talk with you all soon. Bye-bye.